Thank you, Greg. Okay, we'll move on to our next speaker. That's Mr. Ren Zhang. He is a researcher at Nervos and at the KU Leuven, and he's going to be talking about metrics for evaluating protocol security.
Thank you. Oh, sorry. I have the mic already. So just like the title suggests, this talk is about multiple consensus protocols. There will be more than one. Originally, I planned to analyze all of them, but very soon I realized it's not practical. So I chose only 8 instead. You will hear about 6 of them in this talk. And it's about security. It will concern performance, but the focus is not performance. A few words about me. I'm a PhD student at KU Leuven, and I started this work during my internship at Blockstream. My hands are really cold. I feel really nervous right now. So, thank you. So, I'm admitted to this conference because I was known as the guy who breaks Bitcoin Unlimited. So, luckily, what you may not know is that the chief scientist of Bitcoin Unlimited, who is called Dr. Peter Reason, has another design, which I will mention in this presentation. I really thank him for the inspiration and constantly provide me with poorly designed proof-of-work protocols for me to analyze. So thank you, Dr. Reason. What am I going to do without you? So we all love Bitcoin's Nakamoto consensus. In this protocol, to resolve forks, miners are prescribed to choose the longest chain if there is one. And when there is no longest chain, miners choose the first received block during a tie. To issue rewards, it demands that main chain blocks receive full rewards, and orphaned blocks receive nothing. Is it secure? In Nakamoto's original analysis, it is believed to have perfect chain quality. Namely, an attacker who can choose less than 50% of total mining power cannot modify the blockchain with high success rate. And we all know that is not true. An attacker actually can modify the blockchain with high success rate. So what? So let it be. The problem with that is that the attacker can launch 3 kinds of attacks. There are more attacks, but we are going to focus on these 3 attacks in this presentation. The first one is called selfish mining. The attacker can gain unfair block rewards, and which is unproportional to the attacker's mining power share, which allows them to combine their mining power for higher relative block rewards, which damages decentralization. The second one is called double spending. In this attack, the attacker can reverse confirmed transactions and gain profit for himself. The third one is called censorship attack. In this attack, the attacker can in effect prevent transactions from being confirmed and becomes the de facto owner of the cryptocurrency of the permissionless design. Let's elaborate on how these 3 attacks works. In selfish mining attack, so this red square means the time the block is propagated to the network, and an orange circle indicates an attacker block. A triangle indicates a block mined by the compliant miners. So the attacker was lucky to find the first block, but instead of publishing it to the network, the attacker chose to withhold it. And when the compliant miner finds a block, the attacker propagates the block faster than the compliant miner, so that all of the miners will mine on the attacker block instead of the compliant miner's block. And if the attacker is lucky enough to find more than 1 block in a row, the attacker can orphan an honest block safely. When the honest miner finds a block, the attacker just broadcasts both blocks to the network, so that the attacker's chain is longer. In that way, the attacker successfully increased the relative mining power share in the overall block reward. And a double spending attack is quite similar to selfish mining attack. It's mining secretly for an extra reward if orphaning at least 6 blocks in a row, because by convention, Bitcoin confirms transactions with 6 blocks. So if you have 6 secret blocks, if you have more than 6 secret blocks and you publish them to the network, you can reverse a transaction after you receive the goods or service. And the censorship attack is trying to orphan all blocks, not conforming the censorship request, so that I'm going to broadcast that I'm going to censor these transactions. And if you don't follow my order, I will try my best to orphan your blocks. There are two approaches to fix the security problems of Nakamoto consensus. The first one, we call them better chain quality protocols. These protocols claim that I can raise chain quality. This protocol includes, category includes the following protocols. So Ghost and Chain Web is analyzed in Luciana's talk. If you're interested, you can read their paper. In this talk, I'm going to focus on these two red ones. And the second approach is called attack-resistant protocols. These protocols claim that I can defend against the attacks under imperfect chain quality. I don't need to raise chain quality. And these protocols can be further grouped into three types. The first type is reward all protocol. So these protocols reward most of the recent proof of work solutions, and hoping that if these compliant miner solutions are rewarded anyway, the attacker cannot do selfish mining attack to invalidate their rewards, so that the attacker has no incentive to perform selfish mining attack. And the second kind is called punishment attack. These punishment protocols. These protocols, they forfeit rewards from suspicious blocks, hoping that in the fear of losing the reward because of the punishment rule, all attacker will abide by the protocol. The third one is called reward lucky protocol. These protocols issue rewards to certain lucky blocks based on the block content, hoping that these lucky blocks serve as anchor point to stabilize the network. And let's take a deeper look at these protocols. For better chain quality protocol, the first one, we call it smallish hash tie breaking protocol. In this protocol, whenever there's a tie, the protocol demands that all miners choose the block with the smallest hash, regardless of which one received first. The second one is called unpredictable deterministic tie breaking. The protocol prescribes that whenever there is a tie, everyone use unpredictable deterministic pseudo-random function to compute an order of all the blocks and mine on the top one, regardless of which one is received first. The rationale behind the unpredictable deterministic tie-breaking protocol is that as the attacker cannot predict whether he will win the block race with more than 50% of chance, the attacker is not rational to perform selfish mining attack. Is that clear? Okay. And for attack-resistant protocol, we choose one protocol from each type of technical approaches. For reward-all protocol, we choose fruit chains. In fruit chains, they use the same mining procedure for two kinds of different products. If the first k bits of a block is smaller than a certain threshold, it is a block. If the last k bits of a block candidate is the hash of the last k bit is smaller than a certain candidate, we call it a fruit. So when you perform a hashing, maybe you will get a block, maybe you will get a fruit. And the protocol follows longest chain and first receive tie-breaking protocol, which is the same with Nakamoto consensus. For all attack-resistant protocols, we use Nakamoto consensus as their fork resolving rule, so that when we analyze their attack resistance, they are put under the same line. And fruits are embedded in the blocks. You can think of fruit in the same position as transactions in the Nakamoto consensus. And transactions are actually embedded in the fruits. And each fruit has a pointer block, which is a recent block the fruit miner is sure will not be orphaned. The banana's pointer block is this one. And the fruit is valid if the pointer block is in the main chain. If the pointer block is orphaned like the tomato, the fruit is no longer considered a valid proof. Sorry for tomato. And there's an extra rule saying that the gap of a fruit needs to be smaller than a predefined timeout threshold. The gap is defined as the height difference between the host block and the pointer block. For example, for this banana, the gap is 2 because the host block is 2 blocks like later than the pointer block. So valid block receive full rewards, and valid fruits receive full rewards, and blocks receive nothing. And for punishment protocol, we choose a modified version of D-core as an example. In our modified version, we call it reward splitting protocol. Just like the title suggests, it splits the reward among all competing blocks of the same height. It allows a block to refer to previous orphaned blocks as uncles. And an uncle is valid if its gap is below the timeout threshold. The gap definition is similar to fruit chains, but it is different at a tiny little place, that instead of consider the gap as the height difference between the host block and the pointer block, in this protocol, the gap is defined as the height difference between the host block and the uncle block itself, so that we don't consider who is your ancestor. We only consider the height of yourself. And each block reward is evenly split among the competing blocks and uncles of the same height. For example, in this graph, this block B and block C each receive half of a block reward, and A and D receive full block rewards. Is that clear? Okay. And the last one is subchains, thanks to Dr. Peter Reason. So it also has the same mining procedure, but two different kinds of product. It is a block if the candidate's hash is below the certain threshold, which is same as Bitcoin. If the candidate's hash is below a certain, is larger than the block threshold, but smaller than another threshold, we consider it as a weak block. Weak blocks also count in chain length. Weak blocks also contribute to transaction confirmation. However, weak blocks don't receive any block rewards. Only blocks receive block rewards. Is that clear? Okay. So let's lay down the common metrics. I feel very excited about this. It's like, you all claim to be the most secure protocol. Show me what you got. So there are 4 security metrics we consider in this study. The first is called chain quality, which is the minimum percentage of compliant miners' main chain blocks. In this example, the chain quality is 3 out of 6, because there are 6 blocks in the main chain. 1, 2, 3, 5, 4, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sorry. And 3 of them are from the compliant miners. And the second one is called incentive compatibility, which measures selfish mining resistance. It is defined as the minimum percentage of compliant miners' block reward. In this case, because of the 6 main chain blocks, 3 of them are from compliant miners, the incentive compatibility is 3 out of 6. Within Nakamoto consensus, these 2 metrics are equivalent. However, with other protocols, these 2 metrics are not equivalent. Chain quality is just about Byzantine adversaries, but incentive compatibility considers reward. And the third metric, which is another attack resistance metric, is called subversion gain, which measures double spending resistance. It is defined as the max time average block reward plus the double spending reward. So in this case, if we assume that each block is found in every 10 minutes, there are 8 blocks altogether, so there are 80 minutes altogether. So for every 10 minutes, the attacker gets 3 blocks out of the 8 blocks. Is that clear? Time average block reward. Because in double spending resistance, there's no percentage. There's no total reward or percentage of reward. And for this figure, there's no double spending reward because you need to orphan more than 6 blocks in a row to get a double spending reward. So in this example, the attacker has no double spending reward. So the last metric is called censorship susceptibility, which is the maximum number of maximum percentage of compliant miners' block reward loss caused by refusing a censorship attack. So if I refuse a censorship if I refuse a censorship request, the attacker will start to orphan my blocks. So this metric measures how much, what's the percentage of my blocks you can orphan. So in this example, there are 5 honest blocks, and 2 of them are orphaned. So the censorship susceptibility is 2 out of 5. These are the 4 security metrics. Now let's show the evaluation results. So for chain quality, here are the 5 contestants we mentioned in this presentation. Gamma is the percentage of compliant miners' mining power that will mine on the attacker's chain during a tie. So if gamma equals 0, everyone will mine on the... So during a tie, one chain is mined by the attacker, the other chain is mined by compliant miners. If gamma equals 0, all compliant miners' mining power will mine on the compliant miners' chain. No compliant mining power will mine on the attacker's chain. If gamma equals 1, all compliant mining power will mine on the attacker's chain. No one will mine on the compliant miner's chain. Is that clear? So that is a common metrics, a common parameter used in evaluating Nakamoto consensus. So of these 5 protocols, which one is the best? Yes, Nakamoto consensus when gamma equals, oh sorry, this is the worst. This is the best. So because these 2 are tie-breaking protocols, they only deal with the problem of a tie. So you cannot be better than Nakamoto consensus when gamma equals 0 during a tie, because when gamma equals 0, all compliant mining power will mine on the compliant chain, and you cannot be worse than gamma equals 1, because the attacker basically wins all ties. Of the rest 3 protocols, which one performs the worst? So it's the smallest hash tie breaking. For the rest of the 2, unpredictable deterministic tie breaking and gamma equals 0.5, which one is better? Okay, I will reveal the answer. So Nakamoto consensus is better. So why is that? It's because in this, for example, in UDTB, it's just too long. In UDTB, when the attacker finds a block, and the compliant miner finds a block and broadcasts it before the attacker, maybe the attacker calculate the pseudo-random function and realize that if I publish my block, nobody will mine on my block because I will lose the tie. What can the attacker do? In Nakamoto consensus, the attacker is doomed because of first received rule, if you didn't publish your block soon enough, nobody will mine on your block. But in UDTB, the attacker is not doomed. Even if the next block is also mined by compliant miner, the attacker can keep mining on this block. As long as the attacker can win the block race with the next block, when the attacker publish both blocks after the compliant miner's blocks, if the pseudo-random function says the attacker's chain wins the block race, it can still win the block race and claim all the block rewards. So because this UDTP allows a specific attack behavior called catching up from behind, it is not as good as Nakamoto consensus when gamma equals 0.5. And why is smallest hash tie breaking so bad? It's actually, yeah, it's very bad. Because, sorry for the, when the attacker finds a block and the hash is really small, the attacker has very high confidence to know that with 99% of possibility, no matter what the hash, with 99% of possibility, I can win the block race, regardless of whether I propagate the block fast. So I can actually accurately predict the probability that I can win the tie, which allows the attacker to withhold the block only when he's lucky enough. So the compliant miner finds the next block, and the attacker publishes his block and still wins the block race because the hash is small enough, and he has high confidence of winning the block race. And the next time when the attacker is not so lucky, the hash of the attacker's block is relatively large, the attacker can publish the block and claim the block rewards directly. So here are our general results on better chain quality protocols. No protocol achieves the ideal chain quality when the attacker mining power alpha is more than a quarter. So as long as the attacker controls more than one quarter of the total mining power, it can always gain more block rewards than the mining power share. And no protocol performs better than Nakamoto consensus gamma equals 0 for all alpha values. So you may perform better than Nakamoto consensus for a certain parameter, but you're not going to outperform Nakamoto consensus of all the parameters. Why is that? Because the protocols cannot distinguish between honest and attacker blocks. And why can't the protocols distinguish these blocks? It's because of information asymmetry, because the attacker acts on all available information, which is how many blocks I have, how many blocks are published, how many blocks are secret, when did I publish these blocks. All kinds of information are available to the attacker. However, the compliant miners only act on limited public information. And why is that? Because proof-of-work protocols weak security assumptions. They try to be asynchronous. They prescribe that all miners only act on very limited public information. So now for the attack resistance result, first on incentive compatibility. The contestants are Nakamoto consensus, fruit chains, reward splitting, and subchains. Do you have a guess on which protocol performs the best? It's a reward splitting protocol, because punishment is always the most effective way to incentivize correct behavior. And subchains perform the worst. Why is subchains perform the worst? Fruit chains are sometimes better than Nakamoto consensus, sometimes worse. So why is that? Because subchains allow attacker to use worthless weak blocks to invalidate honest blocks. So if everything is valuable, the attacker is risky to withhold blocks. But because weak blocks are worthless, it worth nothing. Actually, the attacker can withhold these weak blocks without any risk to losing block rewards. If it is risk-free, then why not try more audacious block withholding behavior? And the more weak blocks, the worse the protocol behaves. So more weak blocks actually make things worse. So the best case is that you don't use weak blocks. It's an advice on parameter choosing to Dr. Reason. And fruit chains perform worse than Nakamoto consensus with small timeout value. Because the attacker can use worthless blocks to invalidate honest fruits. It suffers from a similar problem because blocks don't have any rewards in fruit chains. So the attacker don't have the incentive to publish any blocks because there's no risk to withhold them. As a result, the attacker can try more audacious block withholding behavior. And does more fruits make things better or worse? So by increasing the number of fruits, the protocol gets more closer to incentive compatible or not. Do you have a guess? It's hard to guess, I think. Okay. It's actually slightly better if there are more fruits. Why is that? Because recall that there's a famous Newton-Pepys problem. It says if you roll a dice 6 times, the probability of you have 1/6 is larger than the probability that you roll a dice 12 times and have 2 6. This is the general result. In fruit chains, there have 4 kinds of mining products: honest fruits, honest block, attacker fruits, attacker block. So we can think of attacker has timeout -1 blocks before the compliant miners do. Namely, the attacker can successfully orphan some fruits as a conditional event. This event is totally independent of fruit generation. This event only considers blocks, right? So think of it as the condition in the Newton-Pepys problem. It is independent, so we can throw it away. But when this condition met, if there are less fruits, the attacker, the probability that the attacker has more fruits is very low because of Newton-Pepys problem. So more fruits means more attacker fruits. Because the attacker is the minority party. If the total number of fruits is more, that means the total percentage of attacker fruit is actually slightly more in terms of gambling space. It's closer to the expectation because when you have more fruits, which means when the attacker has more fruits, the attacker has less gambling gain because you want to gamble when you have nothing to lose, but if you have more things to lose, you don't want to gamble, which means more fruits slightly contributes to incentive compatibility. And subversion gain analysis. The ranking is reward splitting protocol is for subversion gain, double spending resistance, the smaller the better. Reward splitting protocol is better than Nakamoto consensus, is better than fruit chains, better than subchains. Subchains is always very steady. You can trust it. So the intuition behind this is relatively straightforward, so I'm going to skip that. So we analyze another interesting metric called subversion bounty, which is defined as the minimum double spending reward to incentivize deviation. We calculate the subversion bounty of Nakamoto consensus and reward splitting protocol, because for fruit chains and subchains, subversion is like free. I'm willing to, I can try double spending without, like with tiny amount of reward because it's risk-free to try that. So why not? But you can see that as the number of confirmation grows, for a weak attacker, subversion bounty grows like more than linearly, almost exponentially. So which means more confirmation really helps a double spending resistance. But it's less effective for strong attackers. For censorship resistance, we compute all the numbers and the rankings are as follows. For small alpha, fruit chains is the best, and then Nakamoto consensus, and then reward splitting protocol and subchains. But for big alpha, reward splitting protocol becomes the best, and then fruit chains, Nakamoto consensus, and subchains. The intuition is fairly simple, fairly straightforward. For fruit chains, if you want to invalidate other minus block reward, it is a lot harder than in other protocols because they get rewards in multiple conditions, even if you orphan their blocks. But why is reward splitting protocol becomes better than fruit chain when alpha is large enough? Because in fruit chains, because they have different gap definitions. In fruit chains, the gap is defined as the difference between the host block and the pointer block, whereas in reward splitting protocol, the gap is defined as the difference between the host block and the block itself. So in fruit chains, winning a long block race forfeits all honest fruits rewards as their pointers are orphaned. If you orphan their pointers, the game is over for them. However, in reward splitting protocol, the last few honest blocks may still get some rewards. It's not enough to orphan their pointers. You need to orphan a lot of blocks in a row. This figure should illustrate the problem. In fruit chains, if you orphan the pointer, then all these rewards are yours. You're safe with these rewards. However, in reward splitting protocol, even if you orphan this block in a long block race, as long as these blocks are referred to in the main chain, because kin relationship is not considered, this block can still split half of the attacker's block reward, which makes it more resistant against censorship attacks. So some general results on attack-resistant protocols. Longer confirmation delay really helps. And more bandwidth consumption, if you use it properly, really helps. And there's a dilemma. We call it rewarding the good or punishing the bad. Sorry, it's wrong. Rewarding the bad or punishing the good. So flip it in your mind. For reward all protocols, because there's no risk to fork, even if you fork, you still get the block reward, so which actually encourage people to fork, which facilitates double spending attack. In punishment protocols, because censorship attackers, they don't care about their own block rewards, your punishment rule actually gives the attacker another tool to forfeit compliant miners block rewards. So it aids censorship. For reward lucky protocol, lucky doesn't mean good. If you don't break the information asymmetry, sometimes lucky blocks are bad blocks, which make things worse. And so in conclusion, we need to go beyond the reward distribution policy to solve all the attacks. Some discussion, what not to do. We shouldn't design protocols that are too complicated to analyze. We need to design protocols the designers can analyze. Simplicity is better. Complexity is the enemy of security. And security analysis against one attacker strategy is dangerous. For many protocols, they use a simulation to say that our protocol is resistant against this certain kind of attack. However, your protocol often inspires the attacker to develop some other attack strategies. You need to take that into consideration. And security analysis against one attacker incentive is also dangerous. To defend against this attack, you may facilitate the attacker to form another attack, which has another goal in mind. The attacker may focus on short-term reward or long-term reward or damaging other miners' reward. You need to consider all different attacker incentives in your model. So what to do to get better chain quality and attack resistance? You will have to read the paper, and you will have to find me for the paper, because I'm not ready to release it in public yet. Peekaboo. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ren. That was really interesting. We have some time for questions, if there are any questions. If anybody would like to... Okay, great. Well, Patty?
Is Subchains really that bad?
It is. I mean, how they advertise is that they still consider blocks as blocks, and they consider weak blocks as like free to synchronize across the network. But from a protocol designer's perspective, if your weak block helps contributing to transaction confirmation, you're actually a block. So we need to put them under the same ruler, not because your definition.
Cool. And so is the idea that you could use these metrics that you've identified to create like a scorecard for the security of various protocols?
Sorry?
Could you create a scorecard using these kind of metrics if somebody said, this is my protocol?
Yeah, I think that's possible. But I need more people to work on this because I don't know all of the protocols.
Okay, excellent. Well, that sounds like a really useful tool then. We are going to deviate from the program that we printed out